So there's lots of stuff in the media at the moment, and with various organisations calling for a ban on burning, as they call it, a ban on peatland burning. What is controlled or prescribed burning, and why do land managers do it?
There are several reasons for burning. First of all, you want to create a habitat mosaic on the moorland. You don't want it just to be a continuous heather monoculture. So you need different ages of heather, different sorts of plants to be built into the structure of the moor. That has lots of biodiversity benefits. But equally important, probably more important now, is the wildfire reduction benefits. The Peak District has had low grazing pressure for many years now, and there's been very little burning on a lot of it. There's probably more fuel on these hills than there ever has been, certainly in living memory. And the capacity for that to go up in smoke is enormous. So reducing the fuel load and breaking up the fuel load is very, very important.
So there is a definite difference between a controlled prescribed burn and a wildfire burn?
There's an enormous difference between a controlled and a wildfire. Controlled burning takes place in the winter time and in early spring when it's cold and wet, and the fires can be controlled relatively easily, and you can guarantee that it won't burn into the peat. Wildfires tend to take place in the summer when it's hot and dry, and very often catch the peat. Controlled burns cost the public nothing. It's paid for by the moorland manager. Wildfires cost the public millions and millions of pounds because you have to get the fire brigade out for weeks, you have to get all helicopters to drop water on it, and the physical consequences for the human population are enormous.
Does controlled burning or prescribed burning burn peat?
The biggest lie of all is that what gamekeepers and moorland managers are doing is burning peat. I'm actually standing, as you asked me that question, in a place that's just been burnt. It was burnt an hour ago. That's it there. You can see that this is, that's still green. The peat is another several inches underneath that green layer. That will sprout again within weeks.
Okay, so the Calder Valley has flooded 100 times in the last 400 years. York flooded again this year and flooded badly in 2015. Doncaster's flooded. The critics will say that is because of grouse moors. So the big question is, do grouse moors cause this flooding?
No, the Tewkesbury's flooded more often than that. Bewdley's flooded more often than that. On the River Severn, there's no grouse moors there. The idea that it's just a trick. Grouse moors don't cause flooding. Why would they cause flooding? What causes flooding is extreme weather events. If you get 100 millimetres of rain falling in 6 hours on an area 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres, which is about the size of the average sort of upland valley, you've got 1 million tonnes of water that's accumulated on that ground in 6 hours. That water wants to go to the sea as quickly as it can. It doesn't matter what you've got there, you're going to get a flood. Anybody that looks at this in detail can see that grouse moors don't cause flooding. It's ludicrous to suggest that little patches of burnt heather might cause a flood. How can that happen? That burnt heather has still got more water retardants than a grass field or a ploughed field or a road or a track. So you pick the surface which is best at retaining water, best at slowing it down, and blame that. The second thing is that they're sponges, they absorb water. So that's doing a good job too. And if you then add to that the fact that before the water can get off the burnt bit, it has to go on to an unburnt bit, the whole thing just slows everything down. The grouse moors aren't drained. Another assertion is that they're drained wetlands. It's a complete fiction. There were drains put in them 50, 60 years ago, 40 years ago sometimes, but that was for an entirely different purpose from grouse shooting, and the grouse moor managers have blocked them all up. So it is awful that the poor devils that have been flooded and been subject to all this loss and pain are then told a completely fake story about who's to blame. Nobody's to blame, except everybody, in the sense that the climate's changing and you're going to get more extreme weather events. The uplands get more extreme weather events than the lowlands because that's where most of the rain falls. So that's the problem, and it's a problem which is not limited to grouse moors, it's limited to any upland area in the north and west.
So there's been a zero tolerance stance from the shooting organisations, including BASC, regarding raptor persecution. And there's lots of talk about hen harriers regarding grouse moors. Is there an issue with grouse moors, raptor persecution and the hen harrier?
Historically, there's been a major problem. What's happened recently is there's been a complete sea change in people's attitude towards raptors generally. And so the last few years has seen a significant increase in the number of successful nests of hen harriers on grouse moors in England. So this year was a record year, best year since the early 80s. So and that change has been brought about by the fact that people are working together to try and see more hen harriers on grouse moors.
Do you see grouse moors as a big part of the recovery process for hen harriers in the future?
It's essential. It's absolutely essential. But what is really important is that the people that make the effort, the grouse moor keepers and the grouse moor owners and everybody involved in the grouse community, who make the extra effort and make sure that that hen harrier nest is kept safe, because it's not just humans that can damage them, it's foxes and stoats and carrion crows and all sorts of other things that will predate a hen harrier's nest. When those people make the extra effort, it would be nice to get a pat on the back. This year there was over 60 hen harriers fledged in England, a huge number by previous standards, and rising all the time. A lot of them, most of them, were on grouse moors, driven grouse moors. None of the people who were attacking grouse shooting gave any credit for that whatsoever. If you want to have dialogue, if you want to have cooperation and partnership to improve the situation, it's essential that you start giving a bit of credit to the people that are doing good.
So we've been really lucky and fortunate today to spend time with an incredibly passionate landowner who's put his own private funds into this fantastic facility, if you like, for wildlife. So from tree planting to the management that he's done on the moor, do you think that shooting in general, and grouse shooting as well, benefits not only wildlife but creates a backdrop for visitors? Does it encourage people to visit here? Do people spend money here because of what shooting has done?
If you take the national parks around here, the Peak District, the Yorkshire Dales and so on, most of the land in there, the land that people visit, is grouse moors or managed as grouse moors, or is land like we're standing in now where landowners enjoy shooting, and the land is managed with that in mind. Those places have been designated as special sites of scientific interest, of SPAs, as SACs, as national parks, as areas of outstanding natural beauty. What bit of it don't people get? If these places were designated, they must have been designated for the reasons for the way they were managed. And so this place was designated because it was managed for grouse and because it was managed as sporting estates, not in spite of it.
So we're in the Peak District at the moment, but if you look at the Yorkshire Dales, it's just been voted one of the best national parks in the world, top 10 in the world, obviously one of the best in the country as well. Shooting seems to provide a big fabric to that. Do you think that shooting is important for the businesses, the pubs, the hotels, the shops? Is that part of the offer?
You ask a farmer, he will tell you that you can't eat the landscape. Nobody pays to see the landscape. They pay the hotels that do stuff, but if you own a piece of land, you have to make a living from it. And the best way to make a living from a heather moor is to manage it for grouse. And the people that come and shoot grouse will pay large amounts of money to do that. They'll stop in the local hotels, they'll spend an awful lot of money in the locality. That money stays local. That's the one key thing about it. So it may not be trillions of pounds that affect the national economy, but in the local economy, it's vitally important.